Broadcasting from Meredith Hall Studios, you're listening to Covering the Field Sports Show, featuring sports analysts Big Rich Martin, Rockin, Ronnie McKinnon, Gator Gates. And now here's your host, Joe the Answer Ellison.
Welcome to the show, everybody. My first guest is our football expert, Big Richard Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Joe. There's not a lot of sports going on today, so it's kind of hard for a sports fan and our sports betting. It's our day off.
Yes, Wednesday after the All-Star break.
Yes.
Big Rich, the Hall of Fame game, though, is Thursday, August 4th, which is just 2 weeks from tomorrow. Have training camps even opened yet in the National Football League?
Well, Joe, you can hear the pads popping, the coaches yelling, the whistles are going, the Gatorade's getting pouring on people, and we have football officially starting in the NFL. The rookies have reported to camp.
So none of the veterans yet, just rookies at this point.
Well, the veterans can come, but usually they don't. They don't come
if they don't have to, why would they, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, before we know it, all 32 teams will be preparing for preseason football games. And, you know, one big story that people don't really want to talk about, but I guess we have to. Are we close to a decision on the Deshaun Watson case?
There's still crickets going on about that case. I think that everybody that's drafting their fantasy football wants to know if Deshaun Watson's going to play, wants to know about Alvin Kamara. We have no answers right now. We have nothing going on that, but I think that we will before the season starts.
Well, Watson can play in the preseason, even if he is suspended. So,
which normally starters don't play anyway. So it's not really. At least he's at camp and he can get his stuff together.
Well, that's interesting because Atlanta wide receiver Calvin Ridley received a 1-year suspension for betting $3,900 on 6 total bets. He was betting 4 and 18 parlays, and they were made when he was on injured reserve. The NFL is now encouraging people to bet on its games. Knowing this, how long should Watson be suspended for?
Well, I mean, we look at Ridley. First of all, I mean, Ridley he got a 1-year suspension for betting. Is that correct?
Yes.
So he does have an unfair advantage by betting, having the locker room, the real injury reports, the outlook of the game, how they're going to play the game. So it does give him an unfair advantage to bet. Deshaun Watson, on the other hand, has a criminal. Well, he doesn't have a criminal, it's civil, but it's morally outrageous what he did, and I think that he should have a 1-year suspension also.
Yes, I must say that Ridley did do one $1,300 bet on an in-play in a Falcons game, and actually did win that. But the rest were on parlays, and I do agree it should be at least a year. Let's talk about New Orleans running back Alvin Kamara. We started to. He broke a man's eye socket. Tell us about that story, and how long should he be suspended for?
Well, he beat a man down with a group of his thug friends in Las Vegas, 6 a.m. in the morning, broke his eye socket, like you said, and also punched him 8 times and 5 times while he was on the ground.
So what kind of a suspension are you looking for him?
Well, he's looking at a minimum of 6 games, and it might be more. And I kind of see it probably be maybe around the 8 to 10 games.
Okay. So basically, if this is the case, you're saying it's much better to break a man's eye socket or do sexually assault women in massage parlors than it is to bet on football.
Well, that seems to be what we're going at right now, and what the NFL's actions are. I mean, their actions and their suspensions will speak for themselves.
Yeah. If they don't all get a year, then something's definitely wrong.
Yes, morally wrong.
Morally wrong, yes. So last week, we both made lists of the NFL's top quarterbacks. This week, we tackle the job of ranking the league's best running backs. Big Rich, who have you got?
As we said last week, Joe, I'm going to give it from the fantasy football prospect. I'd like you to do it from winning games and the best running back. Is that how we're going to do this?
That's the way we did it last week. I'm thinking, well, let's do it the same way.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we're going to start with my number one. Is going to be Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry did get injured last year. He has a plate in his foot. He came back and looked great in the postseason, and I think we can see nothing but from Derrick Henry. Another 2,000-yard season. Just a great running back. You have to nail it on your fantasy running back. You have to nail your number one draft pick. So if you're going to put it, I would say he's your best bet of everybody.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And I was expecting you to say my number 2 pick, which is Jonathan Taylor. I totally expected you to pick him to be number 1 just because of that injury that Henry got last year.
And we know injuries are year to year, except for your Christian McCaffrey. It's every year. But injuries are year to year, and Jonathan Taylor did have a big workload last year. He had 1,800 yards rushing. He had 360 yards passing. He had 21 touchdowns. Had a great season, and that's why he's my number 2.
All right. We agree on the first 2. Number 3?
Well, I just talked about him, Christian McCaffrey. He is also a big risk. I had him on my fantasy team last year. Was not happy. I was happy when he was getting 30 touches a game in the first 5 games, but he's only played 10 games in the last 2 seasons. So he's a big risk, and he's a reward if he's playing, because when he's playing, he's up there.
Well, he ends up being my number 4. Just because of that injury situation. Nick Chubb is the one I picked for number 3. Would I assume that was your number 4, or did you go a different route?
For fantasy football, I definitely went with Austin Eckler because of the point PPR leagues. He had 911 yards rushing, but he also had 647 yards receiving, so a grand total of 20 touchdowns. So he's a dual back, and I think that he's a great number 4 pick for you.
Right, because the PPR, that means you're getting a point for each catch.
Reception.
Nick Chubb, not necessarily known for catching the ball out of the backfield.
No, he only had 174 yards last year in receiving yards.
Right. Then we go to number 5 on your list.
Joe Mixon. I'm very high on Cincinnati this year. They've addressed some things in their line. And he had 1,200 yards rushing with 13 touchdowns. And then he also had 314 yards in receiving yards. So I think he's a good dual back. And also he's had some problems in his past when he was with Oklahoma.
Yeah, those are a long time ago, I guess. That's why he was a second-round pick. He was an amazing college player. But if I remember right, he punched a woman in a bar.
That's correct.
Yes, okay. Dalvin Cook is the one I picked 5th. Barely over Mixon. I really was really debating which one to put 5 or 6. Those look like pretty interchangeable.
Absolutely. And I have Dalvin Cook as my number 6. He had 1,159 yards rushing, and he had 224 yards passing. He did miss a few games with COVID, and I think Gator got me in the Super Bowl when I think he had COVID last year, and he was on my draft. So I'm going to move him down 1 just for catching COVID.
There you go. And then our eye socket man, Alvin Kamara, is the one I had at number 7. I have him ahead of Eckler, but that's really tough. Eckler, 2 years ago, he did get some injuries, and Kamara also did get injured last year. But last year, Eckler actually played most of the season. I was surprised.
Right, and then as you said about Kamara, he had injuries last year. His line has gotten worse and worse, and now he has no Drew Brees, and that definitely affected his production on the field. I don't even have him in my top 10 because I don't think he's going to play the first 8 games.
Right, because of the suspension. Yeah, that's kind of the thing with Christian McCaffrey and Kamara. How many games are you actually going to get out of these guys?
Exactly, and if you're going to put your first-round pick on your fantasy pick, you have to nail your running back. You have to have a solid number 1, or you better pick somebody good off the waiver wire. Okay,
and who do you have next on your list?
Najee Harris from Pittsburgh, and he was tough. I have him and Nick Chubb very, very close. They both had 1,200 yards rushing, but if you look at the passing and the receiving, he had 467 yards receiving to Nick Chubb's 174 yards, and he also had 3 receiving touchdowns. So I gave him the nudge over Chubb's, and then that's my number 8, Nick Chubb's.
Okay, and number 9, I guess. I went out and picked Aaron Jones. I'm kind of, after the top 6 or so, I kind of got a little stuck on what to do.
Right, and all these running backs at this point are very, very similar to this third or fourth tier running backs. They're very similar, and it's pretty much a crapshoot. I think Aaron does share carries, and that his last year numbers were not good. compared to his numbers the year before when he was getting the bulk of the carries. So I think they're going to continue to do running back by committee, and I'm going to stay away from him in fantasy. And then, like you said, I was so torn, but I'm going to go, just because I'm trying to stay on the show with my producer, I'm going to go David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears. I mean, last year he only played 13 games, but he had 850 yards rushing and 301 yards receiving in 13 games. So he's averaging 4.5 yards a clip. So he's pretty solid when he's in there. Let's hope he stays healthy.
And was that 10 for you already?
Well, yeah, that gives us 9, Joe. And I'm going to have this 10. It's a 10A and 10B because I'm also trying to stay on the show with you. So I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley because he was such a stud at the beginning of his 5 years. But the last 2 years he was injured ago, and last year it just seemed like he just never could get it going. I think the injury lingered, but I think he has a great upside, and I think you can probably pick him up in the 3rd round of your drafts. I'm going to go Saquon Barkley A, and I'm going to go Ezekiel Elliott B. He has had 3 1,000 yards rushing seasons, and he has 2 950 yards. So he's averaging 1,000 yards a year. You know, he did have a down year last year. He's been injured, but I think this year he comes back and he shows some people that he's worth that money he's getting.
I'd like to believe that. I'd like to see Tony Pollard get the ball more also for the Cowboys. So that's why I didn't put him on my list, even though it is my team. So I was surprised you didn't pick your guy, Javonte Williams.
Well, I'm always going to pick my guy, Javonte Williams, if he's wearing a Bronco helmet. But Melvin Gordon was signed, and they do split carries, but he is going to get the bulk of the share. But Melvin Gordon and him are both evenly on running backs, and I think they can put them both times. And it's hard to be consistent week for week with having running backs that split carries.
Well, that was our top 10. We were pretty much in agreement on like 7 of them, and just like we were on our quarterbacks. So we'll see how that goes.
See how it goes.
We still got a month to go before we're even doing our fantasy football draft.
Right. And leading up to that, Joe, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to give you our segment of Sink Joe.
Okay.
Sink or swim, Joe. Who is older, Christian McCaffrey or Ezekiel?
Oh, gosh. Boy, I would guess Ezekiel's been around a little longer, but he did come out as a junior. But I'll guess Ezekiel.
Well, Joe, you are correct. Well, really, you're correct in 2 days. Right now, they're both 26. Mm-hmm. But on July 22nd, he will turn 27. And he does have 1 more year than Christian McCaffrey. And that makes sense, the way he has the extra year. But he did come out as a sophomore, but one's 26 and 27. So if I didn't get to sink you on that one, Joe, I'm going to try to sink you on this one. Cool. All right, we're going to go down to the 2016 draft class. Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield. Who's older?
Let's see. Well, Baker Mayfield, he did play 4 seasons, 5 seasons, so I'm going to say Baker Mayfield is a little older than Sam Darnold.
He is 2 years older. He's 27, and Sam Darnold's 25. So out of all those, I mean, actually Baker was drafted last out of all these quarterbacks in the last part of them, and he's older than all 4 of those. So good job, Joe. You swam all the way through.
I swam 2 for 2. No rehearsal on that either.
Yeah, it was great.
I pat myself on the back. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. Well, we need to move on to baseball. Our baseball correspondent, Rockin Ronnie McKinnon, is under the weather today. So we're going to have you talk about last night's All-Star. Let's first talk about Monday night's All-Star Game Home Run Derby. What happened there?
Well, first of all, let's hope Ronnie, we wish him a happy and healthy recovery soon from his illness. And now I get to pinch hit for Rockin Ronnie, so thanks for having me on for this section. So let's talk about the All-Star Game. Let's talk about the Home Run Derby. What a great show that was, huh? I thought it was actually better than the All-Star Game. I thought it was great. Juan Soto, sink or swim, Joe. He won it. Is he the youngest player to ever win the Home Run Derby?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say yes. I think I might have heard that, though.
Yeah, I think he sunk on that one. There was Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper is the youngest to win it, but
baseball's
he's second.
My weakest subject is baseball.
Right, but he did win over Julio, not to be confused with Julia, our great waitress out there at the Max. Julio Rodriguez did a great job and took out our favorite, the polar bear. Pete Alonso gets knocked out. He smacks 31 home runs. How can I lose the next bet? It was my chance to bet. And what does he do? He he swung out 31, and then I looked like he was just a little bit too tired to get it to 18-19, and Juan Soto won with 10 seconds left.
Yeah, well, I think it was he lost to Rodriguez actually, and Alonso did, and
Yes.
he put up such a big number that it just seemed almost
sometimes you just
impossible.
swing yourself out, and you hit those home runs, and you can definitely see it that he didn't have the same punch to knock out the polar bear. He couldn't knock out Juan Soto. Talking about Juan Soto, I heard he had to they wouldn't even pay for his flight because they didn't pay for he had to ride coach on Sprint or something, airline, and came in at 1 o'clock in the morning because the Nationals were upset with him.
Well, I guess Soto turned down a 15-year, $440 million contract offer. And so at that point, it's like, well, you don't want to be with us, then you're taking the commercial flight.
Right, that's a $440 million slap in the face to him, I guess. I mean, he wants to play for a winner. The Nationals did just win 3 years ago. They won the World Series, but you can see the writing on the wall. That team is not going well, and they are dead last, I believe, in the East.
Yeah, I think you're right. So as far as the odds, Soto was 9-2 to win the home run derby, and the matchups, Soto to beat Rodriguez was 33-1. But who in their right mind was going to take Soto to beat Rodriguez?
Right. I think everybody had him going out in the first round, being the rookie. I think that's what we said last year.
Yes.
Last week we said that the rookies are not good to take these in the home run derby, and they proved us all wrong.
Yeah, and I took Alonso because he'd won it 2 years in a row, so that one went down in flames. But as for the All-Star game itself, last night, what transpired there?
What transpired was a perfect prediction by you, Joe. It was perfect. You said take American League and the under. Great prediction. I got a little bit of that cash. I was very happy with you at that point in time. And, it was just, it's a good bet in Dodger Stadium because the ball does not carry in the evening hours. And you can see after the fourth inning, there was only 4 hits. So the game was 3-2, favor the American League. And Clayton Kershaw came out. I thought that was a class act because he probably didn't have the best numbers to start, but I thought that they letting him start was a great job, and great job to let him pitch at home and start in front of his home crowd. I thought that was a class act.
Yeah, I thought maybe they were going to start the other Dodger, Gonsolin, since he was undefeated, or maybe lost a game late.
No, he's still undefeated, but he shouldn't be because he gave up, I think, 5 or 6 runs to the Cardinals right before the All-Star break.
And he got a no decision on that one.
Right.
Okay. Well, I was surprised hand start for the American League, and sure enough, he gave up 2 runs, but those were the only 2 runs they scored was in the first inning.
Right.
So, and then in the 4th inning, Giancarlo Stanton and Byron Buxton hit back-to-back home runs in the 4th inning, and that's all the American League scored.
Right. And then, like you said, there was only 4 hits after that, so the pitchers outdid the hitters for sure this year, and that's why you bet your money the way you did, and it looked like it was a great bet. I loved watching Emmanuel Calais close out the game. 3 strikeouts in the 9th inning. He looked like he was throwing fireballs out there. He looked great. It's great to see, and he's also a rookie for the Guardians. So get him on your fantasy team baseball because he's closing everybody out.
Yeah, he looks good and plays with a lot of emotion, obviously.
Right.
And that's 9 consecutive wins now for the American League. And only 2 games have gone over 8 in the last 12 games. So I already know what I'm going to bet next year. American League and under.
Go get your ticket right now, Joe. I think they can probably still get it.
Might be a little early, but it opened at 8. We predicted it would open at 8, and it went off at 7.5. It didn't matter because they only scored 5.
Right. And when they had that 2 at the first inning, I'm like, oh, here we go. And then that was it. They closed the door. Great job,
when it was 3-2 in the top of the 4th, it didn't look like it was going to go under at that point. But no more scoring.
That's right.
So that's when you say, hey, maybe the home run derby was more exciting.
I thought it was.
If you watch the last 5 innings, that wasn't very exciting baseball at all.
Unless you're a pitcher. I mean, they did have the pitchers mic'd up. That was kind of exciting.
Yeah, what did you think about the TV announcers talking to the players on the field?
Well, I mean, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like change. I don't think anybody, it takes away from the purity of the game. It's kind of nice to hear them when they, say a bad word or something on there. That's always kind of good, funny. But, hearing the pitcher after he pitches say, oh, crap, when he threw a ball, that was kind of funny too. But anyway, I don't want my outfielders being mic'd up, because if they get it impaired and they don't make a play, and I have a bet on it, and they're out there talking to John Smoltz in the booth, I'm kind of be upset about that.
Yeah, that one pitcher, I can't remember, asked Smoltz what to throw on the next pitch. He throws it in the dirt and almost hits the batter. So that was not a good idea at that point. But it's not just the All-Star game. They're doing this like every Sunday night baseball game.
Right.
They're hooking somebody up. So I'm not in favor of it. But
We can always mute it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, is like baseball that slow that it's okay to mic guys up? Because most of the time they're not doing anything else, so they might as well be talking. I mean, come on.
There's always going to be change. There's always going to be improvement. They're not going to always have answer machines in their house like you do at your house. They're going to eventually progress to cell phones and Snapchat and all the stuff that these kids do.
I'll have to find out what Snapchat is. So, looking forward to the rest of the season, who went into the All-Star break as the hottest teams? Let's start with the American League.
Well, as you know, Seattle rattled off 14 in a row, Joe, and they're still hot right now. They've moved themselves from being below 500 to being as a wild card team right now. They ran 14 in a row off. And what about the Orioles? They put themselves, they're only 2.5 out of the wild card spot, and they went 11-4 in the month of July. So they had a great second half, and they're right there to get a playoff spot. Last year, they're the worst team in baseball.
Amazingly, they're 46-46. And do you want to venture to guess what their over and under was at the beginning of the season?
I would probably say 80.
Oh, wow. 62.5.
Wow.
And they're only 17 away from getting that.
So if you had that right there, you can go cash your ticket in.
Pretty much. How about the National League? What do you see going on there?
Well, the Braves had a great July. They were 12-5. They moved in with, as Big Ronnie said last week, they moved in on the Mets. And I think they're playing good baseball. They're the world champs, and they're playing like it. The other team is the San Francisco Giants. They're 7-3 in the last 10. They won 3 out of 4 against the Brewers, which is a good team to end the last week before the playoffs. And that might be giving them momentum. They had a great 9th inning, 3-run deficit against the great reliever Harder out there in Milwaukee. And they hit 3 home runs, and one was a grand slam by Yaz. And that can change your whole season around, because winning is contagious in baseball, and you can see these streaks. As these streaks come, that's how you have to bet in your second half betting of baseball when you're betting, making these wagers. And the last one, I'm going to take a shout out to my man Gator. Colorado, they won 5 out of 6, 5 out of 7 on the road. So would you venture who is the worst team on the road, Joe, in the road record in Major League Baseball?
Oh, I'd venture to guess it's the Oakland Athletics, because they're my favorite team and they're horrible.
No, it's actually going to be the Detroit Tigers, and then it's the Rockies. But we can look and see that they won those road games, and their record at home is 28-23, Colorado, and their road record is now 15-27. So before that, 7 wins, they only had 8 road wins. So they went on a little streak, and if they're going to play good on the road, then they always play good at home, and they could be a sneaky team to get you some money and maybe even make the playoffs.
All right. And predictions for the World Series?
Let's just see. Oh, now remember, Joe, on these wild card teams, out of the 3 division winners, the 2 with the best record get a bye week, and that's big to who's going to get to the World Series, because you're going to get a 5-day, at least 5 or 6 day rest. So you can rest your team, rest your starters, rest your bullpen, and get ready to go. But I'm going to go and say with the LA Dodgers. Of course, they're playing hot right now. Also, they've won 8 out of 10, and also I'm going to say the New York Mets get in there. I think they have enough. Like Buck Showalter is the coach there, and I think that they have enough talent to get it done, and they will edge out in a good series against the Atlanta Braves.
Okay, and the actual World Series itself, you're going to have...
I'm going to have the New York Yankees, and I'm going to say that the other division winner gets to that is going to be the Seattle Mariners. I think that they're going to come in there and they're going to get it. I don't know if they have enough to overtake the Astros, but I know that they're going to get into the wild card, and they're a young team, and they got made some acquisitions this year. So I say they get into it, and I say the New York Yankees and LA Dodgers, we see them in the World Series.
I'm going to almost agree. I'm going to go Yankees and Mets, but we sound like we have an agreement, basically, that the Mets are going to be there. And that'll be the Subway Series again, which we had back in the early 2000s.
Right.
Well, excellent segment, Big Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final guest today and covering many different sports is Gator Gates. How's it going today?
Oh, I'm great, Joe, but I want to give a shout out to Ronnie. Hurry up and get well and come back. And then Big Richard, way to go on the baseball, man. Way to stay in there. But thanks, that's great.
Yeah, Gator in NASCAR. What happened last week in Loudon, New Hampshire?
Okay, Joe, well, I thought with the way things that are going last week with Ross Chastain and the Toyotas, I was prepared to watch some retaliation, but that never did come. But instead, Brad Keselowski and Austin Dillon, they gave us that kind of action. Midway through the race, under caution, Austin rammed Brad Keselowski's door on the backstretch, and then Brad retaliated and nailed Austin on the passenger side and sending him off on the track. Now, they have gone at it a couple of times in the last 2 years. Now, Martin Truex dominated early, winning the first 2 stages and led 172 laps. Then a poor pit stop sent the number 19 car backwards and ended up in 4th at the finish line. But the winner was the Toyota of Christopher Bell at 12-1, Joe. His first win this season and our 14th driver. And I say that loosely to hit the playoff spot, but I say that loosely because we have 6 more races to go before the playoffs, and that starts September 4th in Darlington.
You could have actually got 15-1 on Bell, and
yeah, before qualifying.
Yes.
And you guys, if you know a driver is good at a track, get them before qualifying.
Right. That's interesting. You're saying only 16 drivers make the playoff, but what if 17 racers win?
Well, if there is more than 16 drivers, NASCAR will go off on points to cut the field down. Now, I like your idea better, Joe. You win, you're in, no matter what.
Yeah, there's really no difference between eliminating 5 or 6 in the first round than eliminating 4 in the first round.
Yes, I agree, Joe. I think I like your idea. You win, you're in. I don't care how many cars we have in there.
I totally agree with that, of course. Sunday is the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400 at Pocono in Pennsylvania. Do you have a prediction on that?
Well, last year they had a double hitter with Alex Bowman winning on Saturday, and then they had Kyle Busch earning the checker flag on Sunday. But I'm going to take Kyle Larson, Joe. He's at 7-1, and I think that's a very good price for him.
Yeah, he raced well on that weekend last year. He just didn't win either of the races. So Gator, Sunday is Formula One's French Grand Prix at Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, France. Who is your pick?
Okay, Joe, well, last year we had Max Verstappen won. I have to take Max Verstappen again, and he knows this track very well, and it's kind of hard for me to go against him.
All right. Sounds like a good pick. And he wins like half the races, it seems.
Exactly. Well, I figure in Formula One, you got a 50-50 shot. It's either the Red Bull or the Ferrari.
So what is this SRX racing that I see on the sheets lately?
Well, Joe, to be totally honest with you, the very first time I saw it was this weekend, and it was excellent, Joe. And I just want to rate some names off of here. You got Marco Andretti. You have the father and son of Dave Blaney and Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Tony Kanaan, Tony Stewart, Paul Tracy, and Michael Waltrip.
Yeah, and that's not even counting like Ryan Newman and a few others, Bobby Labonte, and some very famous names in racing.
Matt Kenseth's in there.
Sure.
So it's excellent. Yeah, I was watching them going 3 wide, Joe, and it was just excellent racing. Not a lot of wrecks or anything like that. Just racing action was great.
All right. Well, I'll have to check it out. Gator, golf's final major of the year, the 150th Open Championship, whereas as us Americans call it, the British Open, was contested last week at the home and birth of golf, St. Andrews, Scotland. What happened?
Okay, well, going into this, Joe, the last round, it looked like it was going to be a shootout between Rory McIlroy and Victor Hovland. McIlroy had a hard time making putts early and couldn't get the ball close at the hole in the later holes. But his first birdie, Joe, didn't come until on the 12th hole. So instead, we had to watch Cameron Smith and Cameron Young duke it out. Both were tied going into Sunday's round. Smith shot a 73 on Saturday, but got that out of his head and made 5 straight birdies on the back 9. Young, who shot a 65, awesome, never had the lead, but on the final hole sank a 15-foot putt for eagle and tied Smith. But that was really short-lived. Cameron Smith made his birdie putt and won at 20 under par. Now, this is his first major win and was at 25-1, Joe.
Yes, a great tournament to be named Cameron for sure.
Oh, yeah.
First and second. That 30 on the back nine for Smith won it for him. It was amazing. He deserved it. And my pick, Jordan Spieth, played well, tied for 8th, but that doesn't pay anything, unfortunately. Tiger Woods missed the cut by 9 strokes.
Yeah.
Not a good showing. Is it time for him to, well, he says already he's cutting basically his entire schedule out, except for the majors and maybe a few other tournaments here and there. So, not much of a,
I don't know.
Not much of a
I
future
guess the
for
only
Tiger.
other thing you could go to is to the senior tour, but I don't know. I don't think a lot of people would like that.
But it would be interesting if he'd lost on the senior tour.
He very well could, Joe.
Yeah, if he's that injured. As for the professionals who didn't qualify for the British Open, many of them were close by. The Barracuda Championship in Truckee, California, Ches Reavie won his 3rd pro title at odds of 40-1. And at 40 years old, he is the oldest to win on the tour this year. So, congratulations to him. Finally, the Tour de France cycling race set to conclude on Sunday. What's caught your eye so far?
Oh, geez. Well, the first thing I saw was Sunday. It was 104-degree heat, Joe. And they were going up those mountains. That's just nuts. And the other thing really is that there has been 8 different riders that have left because of COVID. And they had 2 riders Sunday test positive.
Yeah, it's amazing what these guys do. They don't get any credit because they ride bicycles. Not terribly popular, but we have a guy, Greg LeMond, who won the Tour de France 3 times from Worcester High School in Reno.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, Joe.
Yes, and he would, how he learned to do the mountains in the Alps and Pyrenees was these mountains riding up to Tahoe.
Yeah, right in your backyard.
Imagine just on one day riding your bike up to Tahoe 4 times. And that's basically what these guys do.
What about those wrecks, Joe?
And it's very super dangerous. Have you ever feed?
Well, people clapping in front of you. That's the thing that would bug me is people clapping right in front of you.
They do get super close to the athletes.
Protesters.
Well, yeah, that too, I guess. But after today, Jonas Vingegaard leads 23-year-old 2-time defending champion Tadej Pogačar by 2 minutes and 18 seconds. But there is one mountain stage tomorrow and an individual time trial Saturday. My pre-tour pick of Pogačar was plus 220 yesterday. He might be worth a shot.
I would say so. That's a very good price.
And we'll see how that goes.
I think it's a fair price.
Okay. We should mention World Track and Field Championships going on in Eugene, Oregon, and some events are bettable. And I've been watching that. It's been pretty good. And how about the Canadian Football League? Gator, what do you think?
Well, Winnipeg is 6-0 right now. So, man, they're just killing the league, Joe.
Well, they are the best team, and they've won the last 2 Grey Cups. 2019, they won that. 2020, the season was canceled because of COVID. And last year they won it. Quarterback Zach Collaros, he's been there for the whole ride, and he's amazing.
Yeah.
I watched him play, and he could easily play in the NFL.
I think so too, Joe.
I don't
Very
know.
easily.
But I guess he's the best player in the CFL, so he wouldn't be the best player in the NFL.
No, I
so
think he's got a pretty good gig going right now.
Yeah, he's probably better off staying where he's at. But if you get to watch him play, he's amazing.
Yo, I love watching CFL. I wish the NFL would have some of those rules.
Finally, Gator, tell us about the worst day the sports books have had this year so far.
You talking about today, Joe?
Yes, today is an awful day because there's absolutely nothing to bet on. But I'm thinking about a day where the books lose a bunch of money kind of day.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about January 9th. But doomsdays for the sports books, Joe, it's really hard to comprehend with a record $26.3 billion bet on the U.S. during the first quarter of 2022. But January 9th will go down as one of the wildest nights in American gambling history between the cutthroat bettors and the paranoid sportsbooks. That day was Week 18 in the NFL. The Jaguars were a 14-point underdog and 6-1 on the money line. Jacksonville won that game 26-11, and that put the score Cutthroats 1, Paranoids nothing. The last game of the NFL was between the Chargers and the Raiders, And because the Ravens won earlier in the day to Pittsburgh 16-13, if the game ended in a tie, both teams would go to the playoffs. The books had the tie at 135-1, but Joe, normally they would be at 1,000-1. Now the Raiders won in overtime 35-32. The Paranoids won that round by the skin of their teeth, and that put the Cutthroats and the Paranoids tied at deuce. Now the last round was the NBA game between the Warriors and the Cavaliers. 10 minutes before the tip-off, the Warriors PR team tweeted that Draymond Green would be on the court for the opening tip-off to honor Klay Thompson, but would not participate in the rest of the game due to a left calf tightness. But the Cutthroats went for the jugular on the under in every Draymond Green prop. Most of the books took down those props, but DraftKings was slow to react, and that cost them $1 million in a matter of minutes. Now, after the tip-off, Green committed a quick foul and left the game with 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 0 assists. That gave the Cutthroats a knockout and the belt for the day. Now, Joe, the only doomsday scenario I remember is when the New York Giants beat the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 42, 17-14, and they were a 12-point underdog.
I remember the Patriots when they beat the Rams. They were a 14-point underdog, and that was a pretty big one. And I actually had that one, so I'm very proud of myself.
Wow, yeah, I would say so.
But the Bucs took a real hit years ago in the Dallas-Pittsburgh Super Bowl when the 35-31 game, when Pittsburgh was actually favored by 4.5 at one point, and Dallas was an underdog of 3.5 at one point. So if you had taken the plus 4.5 with Dallas or the minus 3.5 with Pittsburgh, you would have won because they landed right on 4.
You would have middled it. You would have won both sides. Yep.
So that was probably the biggest loss the books have had ever in a Super Bowl. I would just guess.
Yes, yeah. Sounds about right, Joe.
Well, great job, Gator.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Well,
appreciate you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make us furious about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end something went horribly wrong and they ended up being losers. It's the segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So Gator, do you have a You Got Hosed story this week?
Yeah, Joe, on Saturday, the basketball tournament, or simply the TBA game between Big Five and the Expats was refunded due to a site change. Now, the game started outside at Rucker Park in New York, but then it was moved indoors after it started raining. Now, house rules for basketball at some sportsbooks state, and I quote, "Any change in venue from the original site constitutes a refund," unquote. So if you had the winning ticket, you got your money back. If you were on the losing site, you need to go through the trash and retrieve that ticket, because either way, you got hosed.
Well, I don't really see what the difference is, whether they're playing inside or outside. It's the same two teams. But you're saying because they went from inside to outside.
Or any change of venue.
Any change of venue.
Any change of venue.
Now, I know in tennis, they'll put like the roof over the court, or like if there's a rain delay and they restart again the next day, they might put them on a different court. Mm-hmm. But that's not considered a site change.
No, that's the same venue.
Interesting. Okay. So, Big Rich, do you have a You Got Hosed story?
Well, yes, Joe. I did take your advice. I tried to go on my app site on the William Hill and bet the American League and the under, and it would only let me do one or the other. So I took the American League. I didn't get the parlay, but I did win half, so I only got a half a host.
I can't understand why you couldn't parlay it on your app.
William Hill sometimes does things, and that you can probably get at the sports book, but unfortunately it wasn't there. So I did get half a host. Joe, do you have one?
I was going to say, that's where modern technology did not help you.
Yes.
It's where you needed your landline.
I need my landline and call it in is what I needed to do.
And you needed to walk your down to the sports book and bet it yourself. And then you would have got the parlay like I did.
You're absolutely right.
But yeah, anyone who bet on Canada against the United States in the women's CONCACAF soccer final got hosed. In the 78th minute of a scoreless tie, America's Rose Lavelle ran into the penalty area to chase a ball. Canada's Alyssa Chapman made slight contact with her. Proving that it was slight contact, Lavelle takes another full step and then falls down. The referee mistakenly awards the United States a penalty kick. Alex Morton proceeds to convert the only score in the whole game. The U.S. qualifies for the next Olympics, while Canada must now defeat Jamaica in September of 23 in order to have a chance to defend their 2021 gold medal. Everyone who bet on Canada, plays for Canada, or even roots for Canada got hosed.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. You did get hosed. But, Joe, that trophy holds 20 margaritas.
That's better than the claret jug that the...
Right, I guess Alex Morgan was watching Cameron. Cameron put 2 beers in his. So she went and got some margaritas, and they drank about 20 of them out of the cup.
Well, they could have gave that referee some of that margarita, too.
They should have.
They definitely owed him one for that.
You got hosed.
But Joe, I want to do before we close, I want to talk about, we're going to have a live show tentatively for August 19th at Capitol Barbershop on Winnie Drive and Carson Avenue.
Carson City, Nevada.
Carson City, Nevada. We'll have our live show. We're having a football special, and we're also going to be putting a $5 bet that everybody can be on. So we'll be, promoting that you can make we're going to call it Make Your Picks. And you're going to pick it from every 16 games. You'll pick every game, and you'll put it in the order that you think is going to win. Everybody will put $5 in, and of course, we'll be given to the winner. And we're going to thank Jeff Nichols down there at the Capitol Barbershop for sponsoring our show.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that contest myself. And hopefully everybody gets in on that.
That's great.
Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into the show, and we look forward to bringing you another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to a Covering the Field sports show. Visit us at coveringthefield.com. Email us your comments, questions, and you got host stories at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at coveringfield. Thank you to our junior IT, Caden Martin. Thanks to our assistant to the editorial staff, Boots McCage. We will see you all next time for another episode of Covering the Field.